The Washington Commanders break their 3-game losing streak and defeat the Tennessee Titans 42-19. We've got your instant reaction analysis breakdown right here on Left the District. Let's go.
Yeah, it's Ref the District. Come on now and join us. Let's go.
Greetings and salutations and welcome to this instant reaction here on Ref the District. Give me 1 second while I do a little bit of administrative stuff here. Sorry, that's my mistake. We've got your instant reaction, breakdown, analysis all here on Ref the District. After Washington defeats Tennessee 42-19, we've already got people in here talking all about this game. It was a fantastic start, a fantastic end, a little shaky there in the middle, but man, it was good to break the 3-game losing streak. I'm the Stoner. Trev's not going to be able to make it. Nathan should be here at any second, but we'll continue on until he gets here. Of course, here on Ref the District, make sure you hit that like button. You hit that subscribe button. And if you don't get notifications, how the heck are you going to know when we're going to be here live like this here after every single game? And of course, every Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Happy to be here with all of you who are already here. We've got TJ's here, Trout Slayer's here, JSW's here. Who else? Tim's in the house. Glad you're here, Tim, with us in the house. JG, Franchise Talk, P-Dub's in the house. Everyone, make sure you start loading up those comments because we've got a lot to talk about here on Ref the District. But before we do that, hey, look, we've got great sponsors for this show. They support us so that we can continue to give you great content. BetOnline is one of them. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the game as they happen. All the games. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA, college basketball, NHL, UFC, MMA, head to BetOnline today to get in the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. All right, we've got a whole lot to talk about. Again, make sure you are hitting up that comment section, and of course, you're hitting that like button. We want to get as many people in here talking about what we just watched, a 42-19 Washington demolition, really, of Tennessee. It got a little bit scary there for a bit in the middle of the game, and then we got to the fourth quarter. And look, the fourth quarters have been not very good for Washington throughout this season, especially the last couple of weeks, especially last week. So you started to get that concerned feeling. I don't know if anybody did get that during the course of the third quarter going into the fourth, that you were like, uh-oh, here we go again, as Tennessee cut it to, what did they cut it down to? 28-13 at one point, 28-14. Listen, I don't have the best memory with exact scores, but I do have a lot of notes of stuff we need to talk about. Got to talk about the kicking situation. That's a concern. But before we get to concerns, we're going to talk about all the great stuff that happened in this game. Couple of things before the game, maybe that happened in the past couple of days. What did you all think of Washington cutting last year's number one, 2023's number one first-round pick, Emmanuel Forbes? That was a shocker. It wasn't a shocker because he hadn't been playing. He hadn't even been dressed for a couple of games. He was not active for a couple of games. It's still a shock that Washington did end up cutting Emmanuel Forbes. But look, Dan Quinn said Michael Davis has been coming on lately in practice, so they had to. They had to find a spot somewhere, and it turned out to be Forbes. I mean, that's crazy. It was last year he was their first pick. But it's not – I definitely think, it's not a shock that he was necessarily cut, but it's still a shock that they're cutting their number one pick from just a year ago. And then the other big news before the game, you all saw this, right? Last year's second round pick, Fidarian Mathis, was an inactive, a healthy scratch for this game, a defensive tackle going against a good running team, going against Tony Pollard, who is 8th in the league in rushing. Tennessee's offense running the ball was 12th in the league. And they said, you know what? We don't need last year's second-round pick for Darian Mathis. That was a shocker to a lot of people. Look, Johnny Newton's coming on, this year's second-round pick. But still, your first and your second-round picks basically being not even a thing. That's crazy, my friends. And then, of course, Lattimore, again, not being ready to go. Now he's got an entire extra week to get healthy. Hopefully he'll be ready to go after the bye against who? His former team, New Orleans, in New Orleans. That's going to be interesting. But let's get to this game. The crowd was there. The crowd was hype. You had the black uniforms, the all blacks. That was pretty awesome to see. But look, it was obviously a home field advantage. If you get a team that doesn't travel well, you get a team that's not very good, like the Tennessee Titans, you're going to be able to fill that stadium with Commanders fans. And Washington just did just that. And you saw in the very first series for Tennessee, they had 2 false start penalties. 2, and that crowd was loud. So give Washington fans, some of you all who may be here, who may have been at the game even, a lot of credit for showing up, because that was a loud crowd and it was active and it was a lot of fun to hear that going on. So Washington, of course, in that first half just gave it to Tennessee. They win the toss. They let Tennessee take the ball first, and it was a quick 3 and out. They actually went backwards. Tennessee went backwards, and you're like, okay, loving this. Washington gets the ball, and you throw a quick pass. Here's another question for you. Was it shocking that on the first play of the game, Terry McLaurin lines up on the right side and Cliff Kingsbury targets him on the first offensive play in the game? If that's not a great sort of troll to us and all the people who follow the Commanders, because that's what we've been complaining about, right? Number one, why is he always lined up on the left? And number two, why are you consistently not throwing to him? And so Cliff Kingsbury said, okay, for all you who don't like that, I'm going to throw it to Terry, first play on the right side. Thought that was great. And then the second play was Jane Daniels running up the middle. Third play was another one to McLaurin. And then, the second play was the Noah Brown pass. And then the third play was Brian Robinson right up the middle. Brian Robinson was great today. The offense came out on fire. The defense came out on fire. And Washington was doing great things right from the start and pounced on a bad Tennessee Titans team. That's what they were supposed to do to Dallas the week before, but couldn't do it for whatever reason, division game, whatever you want to call it. But they did it this week. And then the next time Tennessee punts the ball, Washington gets the ball, goes right down the field, scores again. And just like that, it's 14-0. And then Tennessee fumbles, a great play by Sanderstill to strip the ball from Tony Pollard and pounce on it himself. And then what does Washington do? Right down the field and scored. Before you even knew what was going on in the first quarter, Washington's up 21-0. And you're like, okay, the route is on. Let's put 50 on them. And then, of course, on the kick, Tennessee fumbles the kick return, and Washington, it was a bloodbath out there. And so then you got to sort of relax, right? Relax and sort of enjoy what was going on. And probably the players did that too, right? Didn't you think that they probably relaxed a little bit and allowed Tennessee, who was like, look, we got to work on things and let's start moving the ball. And they did. And they got a touchdown right before the end of the first half on that pass from Will Levis. But look, let's look at some of the stats here. We're not going to go through like every drive of the game, but let's look at some things that Washington did. First, let's look at individual. And I want to start getting people's thoughts over here, and we'll start going to them about Jaden Daniels, about his play today, about Brian Robinson Jr. and his fourth 100-yard game of his career, about the running game in general. But look, Jaden Daniels was 25 of 30 for 206 yards, 3 touchdowns through the air, his first 3-touchdown game. He did have the 1 interception. He was sacked twice for only 10 yards and had a 114.7 rating. That's awesome. And then he also ran the ball 9 times for 34 yards and another touchdown. So he had 4 total touchdowns on the day. And I mean, he was awesome. He was throwing the ball downfield. He wasn't perfect. Right? He had some plays that he probably wants back, but he played extremely well in this game. The entire team showed up. The entire team said, hey, look, we were embarrassed last week against Dallas. We were absolutely embarrassed against Dallas, and we're not going to do that again. And that's what they did. They came out and they gave it to Tennessee right from the start. Will Levis ended up 18 for 37 for 212 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was sacked twice. They must have changed something in the sacks because I thought Luvu had 2 and Fowler had 1, and it's only showing him as 2 sacks. They may have given one of those Fowler sacks, may have given that that Levis was running on that play. But he had 84.5 rating. He ran the ball 2 times for a -3 yards. He just wasn't good. The guy puts mayonnaise in his coffee. Anybody who puts mayonnaise in his coffee, I can't trust that kind of guy. He eats his bananas without peeling them. You can't trust a guy like that. I mean, Tony Pollard, again, who came into this game as the 7th leading rusher in the NFL, had over 800 yards on the year. He ran the ball 8 times for 35 yards. That's it. And their entire rushing attack was 11 for 35, a 3.2 yard average. Washington, who came into the game, I already put this away. Washington came into the game defensively as the 29th worst rushing defense in the entire league. They were giving up 145 yards per game, and Tennessee ended up with 35. Now, they had to abandon the run pretty quickly, sure, but they weren't doing it at the beginning of the game either. So you have to give a lot of credit to this defense, the adjustments that they made to hold a Tennessee offense, again, that was 12th in the league in rushing and held them to only 35 yards rushing. And again, what Jaden Daniels did, 25 for 30 and 206 yards, this was the number one pass defense in the entire NFL in terms of yards per game. Their defense was giving up 169 yards a game. And Washington came in and threw for 206. That's pretty awesome. Jane Daniels had no trouble. He had his way with this team. He completed 25 of 30 passes. I can't do that math in my head, but that's got to be close to 72%, something like that. But as a team, they rushed the ball for 267 yards. We've been talking about it over and over and over again. The key to this team's success is running the ball. And they ended up running the ball to the tune of how many attempts did they have out of those 267 yards? 45 attempts, 45 rushing attempts for 267 yards. Keep those comments coming. I promise you we're going to get to all these comments here in just a little bit as we start getting into more of this game. 267 yards. They averaged 5.9 yards per rush. And they had 463 yards of offense. That's what you call responding to adversity. And defensively, they gave up a total of 245 yards. They had been giving up 370. I don't care if Tennessee's offense isn't that great, which they're not. Dallas's offense wasn't that great. And Dallas threw all over and ran all over Washington last week. It was important for this team to come out and establish the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, and that's exactly what they did. They did both of those things. And then when Tennessee starts making a push in that third quarter, Washington's defense needed to come up big, and they did. Tennessee didn't help themselves. Penalties, dropped passes, bad passes, all of that stuff. They were terrible. But unlike last week, when Dallas was terrible and kept giving Washington opportunities, Washington didn't take advantage of that. This week, Washington took advantage of a bad team making bad plays, putting themselves in bad positions, and Washington took advantage of it this week. Some stats that I thought were really good here. I went and looked at a few things. On the year, Washington has had 24 times they've had 3rd and 1. They've converted 21 of those. They are 21 out of 24 3rd and 1. That's a pretty incredible stat. And we've been saying it since the beginning of the year. When you've got 5 back there and it's 3rd and 1, it's over. It's over. Looked at another thing. They had 12 times in this game that they had 3rd and 3 or less. Think about that for a second. 3rd and 3 or less. They had 12 times. And they converted 10 of those. 10 out of 12 times they converted 3rd and 3 or just to have 12 times of 3rd and 3 or less is amazing. That means they're doing work on 1st down and 2nd down. They're not behind the sticks, as the saying likes to go. And look, that's what helps this offense. If you're not sitting at 3rd and 7 all the time, you can do some great things, especially with 5 back there. He's a cheat code on 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3. It's almost automatic. 21 out of 24 times, 3rd and 1 that they've converted. They are 13 out of 15 on 4th down conversions. So including the 10 of 12, so there's 2 times they did not convert on 3rd and 3 or less in this game. One of those times they went for it on 4th down. It was 3rd and 2, they didn't convert. 4th and 2, they did convert. So it's almost like 11 out of 12 times they had it. They converted to a 1st down. That's pretty awesome. I was very impressed with that. It seems that they came out of this game relatively healthy, relatively speaking. Of course, you had Wiley being a scratch, and Lucas was out there, and you never saw any real trouble from the right side of the line. So Lucas played instead of Trent Scott. That was kind of something different we weren't expecting. But the offensive line was great. Absolutely dominated the line of scrimmage. At 8-5, Washington has their best record after 13 games since 1996. Think about that. There's my man Nathan finally showing up into the game. Nathan, I said Nathan's coming. I said, I didn't know.
Yeah, I told you I was coming in hot. Apparently it was hot, super late. And I do appreciate you holding down the fort. I've been watching. I was taking care of the kiddos over inside of the house. So this game was everything. I kind of missed like the last minute as I was getting ready, jumping on here, Stoner. But so fill me in on where we're at right now. Happy to have the victory. Happy to be back in a onesie. It's been too long. Since being in a onesie here. You talked a lot about Washington trying to run away with this one early. 3rd quarter, things didn't necessarily look right. But this is fantastic. You were on 3rd down conversions was the last thing I was hearing before jumping on.
Just think about this, Nathan. For the year, they've had 3rd and 1 or 3rd and 1 24 times this year. Mm-hmm. They've converted 21 out of 24.
Yeah, they've showed that stat. Yeah, during the
they showed it. They were 18 for 21, and so I thought I'd keep up with it.
Oh yeah. That's an amazing stat, and and I wonder, Stoner, if we were to actually go down and look at the ones that they didn't convert. Yeah, did they didn't convert it on 4th down?
Sure.
Is what we need to go find out, because Washington has an absurd conversion drive to point ratio.
Yeah.
Like they score on so many of their drives, and it was nice to get back into this, because coming into this game, there was a couple things that were big talking points for us. Stoner. It was how good that Tennessee defense is and how they were being let down by a Tennessee offense that was giving away the ball. Well, the Tennessee offense did their part. Well, I guess with special teams turnover on one of those. So they did give short fields to the Washington offense, but the Tennessee offense didn't really turn over the ball outside of that one Tony Pollard fumble, right? So it was just a Tennessee defense that was ranked very highly against the run, against the pass, and just could get scored on. And Washington, with Cliff Kingsbury and Jaden Daniels in their bag today, looked fantastic, which was the other part of that conversation, Stoner, was not the Tennessee defense, but it was the Washington offense that had been struggling the last few weeks to be consistent, and whether or not this was Cliff Kingsbury's typical fall off as soon as we reach around the midway season point. And would you feel comfortable saying that, that's a myth, that the Cliff Kingsbury has found a way past that particular hump?
Well, no, not yet. There's still more to see at this point in the season, because the record that we're looking at is first 8 games and then after 8 games. Sure. First 8 games this year, they were 6-2. And so now they're 8-5. So they're 2-3 since then. So let's see how the rest of the year plays out. But it was certainly trending that way. But that doesn't mean they lose every single game.
Sure.
So, but look, Cliff today was spot on. He was doing everything right. They rushed the ball 45 times, Nathan. 45 times. And
very good day on the ground.
Yeah, and when you do that, you're controlling the line of scrimmage. And I thought it was great. I don't know if you saw this part at the very beginning, that first play of the game, when he put Terry on the right side and he targeted Terry
on the right side
and targeted him and threw the first pass to him, which was almost like a middle finger to all the fans like us, like me specifically, that says stop putting him on the left side all the time and target him some more. So that's what he did.
Yeah, so 8 targets, 8 receptions, 73 yards, and 2 touchdowns was Terry McLaurin today. And a good portion of those were on the right-hand side. And you got to wonder what, this is a coaching staff that's talked about being introspective and talking about what's not going right and what hasn't been going right. And I wonder if throwing Terry on the right-hand side is one of those things that Cliff is like, his offensive staff, and they're talking and they're like, we're kind of in a rut. We got to figure out something. We got to do something different. And maybe that's what it was. It was just like, hey, let's change things up just to kind of for ourselves, because this was an offense that was kind of stagnant, and they looked anything but stagnant. The offensive line had been struggling for the last few weeks, finding holes. Even in the run game was one of the things we were talking about on Wednesday. Was this is an offensive line that back-to-back weeks we were praising them because they were doing what they needed to do, but then all of a sudden they started not even getting push in the run game, which is shocking to see. And this time they were opening up holes, so many that even Chris Rodriguez was running wild today, which was absolutely fantastic to see for him, having been cut from the team not just a week and a half ago.
Yeah, sure. But was it coincidence that everything that was going on with the first half and the running and all that time of possession, was it a coincidence that in the second half they started off with their first 8 plays and 7 of them were passes, and they had 2 punts?
Yeah, I think a lot of that's going to be coming down to some of the Tennessee adjustments that we were seeing. And I want to go back and I want to watch more of that, because that's certainly how it kind of felt. Rather than Cliff Kingsbury trying to force a pass, it was recognizing that the coverage was dictating get the ball away from your running back. But it could also be that he, again, with Terry moving to the right-hand side for some of these plays, was this Cliff trying to overthink things and being like, okay, they're expecting us to come out and run, so we're going to try to pass the ball to kind of, play that chess game, and we just kind of outmaneuvered ourselves. So that one, I'm going to wait and do a rewatch of this game, because this is one of those games you have to rewatch because it makes it feel so good. We were in our
Yeah.
group chat and just talking of just like, is this real life? You got to pinch
Yeah.
ourselves a
This
little
is
bit.
amazing.
When it comes to that. Yeah, it is something. JG wants me to ask you, and I think this is a fair question here, Stoner, after our long rant on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Are the Washington Commanders still frauds, Stoner?
Well, no, they just won a game that they were supposed to win. But I made it very clear that the fraudulent comment was at that moment. At that moment. If I'm comparing it to what they were supposed to be at the beginning of the season, then of course not, because I had them at 7 wins for the whole year. Nobody had them really at 12 wins, which is where they're, the direction they're headed. But at that point, after losing to Dallas at home against a wounded bad team, then yeah. But right now, no, when you're 8-5, you haven't beaten anybody still, but they just played a very complete game against a very good defense, and they controlled the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. They did just about everything right. And yes, I'm not moving the goalposts. I made it very clear. I said, at that moment, I must have said it 10 times on Wednesday. At that moment, are they frauds?
Yeah.
And I
Gus
said, yes.
with a comment for
It's
our audio
now.
listeners saying Stoner's moving the goalpost again. TJ, until we beat a good team, yes, we're still frauds. Now, TJ, the only reason why I want to kind of counterpoint to this, and we're not going to go too much into frauds because we're talking about this game specifically here, is this game was very important in Washington. It was a game, well, one, we need to break the losing streak. 2, we need to get back into the groove things offensively.
Yep.
Both of those things happened this game. And we don't necessarily like to say games are necessarily must wins, especially a game against like Tennessee and whatnot.
Yeah.
But PFF had posted this earlier this week, and with a win, percentage wise, getting to the playoffs, Washington is at 77% making the playoffs now, according to PFF. With a loss, if they would have lost to the Tennessee Titans, which is an out of conference game, so it's not like it's affecting tiebreakers or anything like this. You talked about how this is that extra game in a 17 game season. Less than 49% chance to make the playoffs. That is how important this game was, and that is why I would say that they came out and they did what they needed to do. They did two things, right? They came out, they needed to win, right? And then when they had a lead, what do I tell everybody every time? To prove that you're a running team, you have to be able to run the ball when they expect you to run the ball. And they did that. And they did that today against a defense coming into this game that was actually one of the top statistic defenses coming into this game. You're talking about on the defensive side of the ball, being able to hold Will Levis, who was coming on a heater.
Yep.
This isn't a good Tennessee game. I'm not a Tennessee Titans team. I'm not trying to convince anybody otherwise, but this was a Tennessee Titans team that just beat a Houston team that's another playoff team, right? And this is a Tennessee team whose defense is being let down by an offense that is now being led by a guy who is figuring things out in a new offensive scheme for himself. And Washington shut it all down.
Yeah. Yeah.
At no point did I feel like the Titans were ever going to come back into this game.
No, I didn't either. It was a little shaky when they got to what is it? Something 13, maybe it was something 28-13. Maybe that's what the score was.
Yeah, it was 28-13. Nick Folk had hit a 44-yarder with 3:40 left in the third quarter.
Yeah, then you're like, it's a little scary. But Washington did what they had to do. But you're right, Nathan. They had to come in. It was a must-win game for a ton of different reasons. But you don't want to go into your bye week having lost 4 in a row, 2 of them to bad teams. You don't want to do it. So in that respect, it was a must-win. Obviously, for your overall record and your playoff seeding was a must-win game. But like you said, you had to get your offense back on track. You did that. You had to get Jaden Daniels out and running on the edges again. You did that. You had to get your number one wide receiver targeted a lot more than you have been. You did that. defensively, you had to have a convincing performance and to be able to stop a bad quarterback and a bad offense. And you did that. You did everything that you set out to do that was important for this organization to do to go into the bye week. You're going to feel good. You went in relatively healthy in terms of this game. You had Noah Brown, who left the game with ribs. B-Rob was limping around a little bit, but I think he'll get a little bit better as the week goes. And then everybody else, it seems that they came out of it pretty healthy. You did everything that you needed to do. Everything that you needed to do. That doesn't mean there aren't some things that still concern you, because of course there are. But you did everything that you were concerned about going into this game. Yeah,
maybe not one of the things that we were concerned about, and that's on the kicking thing. Captain Obvious with a $2 donation, double $2 donation. One first to ask us, is Ray Finkel healthy? And then playoff teams need competent kickers, says Captain Obvious. And that is kind of an obvious statement, Captain, living up to your name on that one. We appreciate the $4 in the super chat donations. And that's probably the one area where there's still some concern. But we talked about that too on Wednesday, Stoner, where Zane Gonzalez was not signed to the active roster. He was kept on the practice squad and then called up. And that was absolutely a maneuver from Adam Peters, trying to keep his options open, as he had one more call up to do for Zane Gonzalez. We're headed into the bye week. I expect that we'll see some kickers coming in and trying to challenge and figure out where we're going to go with this position. Zane Gonzalez, let me pull up the box score because I don't have that off the top of my head here as far as what he ended up doing, but he was 0 for 2 today, 6 for 6 on extra points. And the 2 missed kicks were from, do you remember the
46 and 52, I think
46 and 52. So this is this a big concern for you like it is for Captain Obvious, or is this something that you're okay? Let's wait to talk about this come this game against New Orleans, who thankfully will be in New Orleans in a dome. You won't have to worry about, weather conditions, or I'd seen somebody had commented that Northwest Stadium is purposely designed to confuse kickers.
No, I'm not. I mean, you're obviously concerned that he missed 2 field goals. If he had missed 2 field goals and any of those extra points, I'd be even more concerned. So there is a level of concern there. The guy came into the game having made 20 consecutive field goals throughout the course, and not this year with Washington, but just overall in his career. He's a fairly competent kicker, but still no doubt that missed field goals like that are going to derail a game. They're going to derail a season. So there's that concern. I just don't know that there's anybody sitting out there right now who is going to come in and
at this point, they're all journeyman kickers that you're going to get. Even Austin Seibert was. TJ asking if those missed kicks led to Titan touchdowns, which I believe was the case. JG saying if Seibert can get healthy over the bye, I'm still okay with him. You might be, JG, but Seibert can't come back after the bye. He is put on the IR,
at least 4 games.
So inactive reserve. So he has to miss
4 weeks or 4 games.
4 weeks.
4 weeks. Okay,
has to miss at least 4 weeks. So we won't be seeing him right.
You probably won't see him the rest of the year.
It's a very good chance, especially with a leg injury, a lower body injury with the kicker. You're probably not going to see him back when it comes to that.
I think Zane Gonzalez is going to be the kicker moving forward. I just don't think that anybody's going to come in and wow them because Zane Gonzalez is fine. And plus, you've got that decision right now with Zane Gonzalez, as you mentioned. You signed him to the practice squad and brought him up. He's out of practice squad call-ups. He's done. He's out. They either have to sign him to the 53 or cut him.
Yep.
That's all they've got left. And so there's some maneuvering that's got to go on behind the sines, but that's probably going to be priority 1.
Fedarian Mathis, healthy scratch, and we need a kicker. Oh my goodness, what a
we talked about that at the beginning too. We talked.
I did hear that part. We're going to be talking a lot more about that aspect when it comes to Wednesday's show. We stream live every Wednesday at 7:30 Eastern on YouTube and Facebook. We appreciate everybody joining the conversation. Don't forget, for this video, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the channel here for us. And, we love having everybody in here. We're having a lot of good comments coming. Gus Bus asking one pretty good one. We're talking about all the things that they needed to do, improve. How about Jaden Daniels? Gus Bus is asking. We've cleared any concern about Jaden Daniels being a cold weather QB?
I mean, technically to that point of what is considered cold weather game for him, I believe this is the coldest weather. I mean, it was 42. Let's not get carried away. Talk to me when he goes into Green Bay, right,
Sure.
in a wild card game, and it's 6 degrees and snowing. Then we'll talk about him overcoming the cold weather. This was not really a cold weather game. It was in the low to mid 40s. I don't consider that a cold weather, but technically, I guess to what the stat is based on, I guess it's a cold weather.
Technically there. TJ pointing out that Jaden Daniels went sleeveless. I will point out that so did Tua. And he is very much a warm QB. That was all for show. Mike Daniels, not to dovetail too much in this one, Mike Daniels was chittering his teeth as he was heading into the locker room trying to do an interview. It was just like, come on, guys, you guys, we know you're from Miami, but you gotta step up a little bit there. I'm not concerned about the cold weather for Jaden Daniels until he shows me that it's a problem for him. And we will have some opportunities for that as we have home games against the Eagles and the Falcons coming up. Mention how big of the game this was with, there are teams trying to go for the playoffs. Now, the Falcons today did lose. Washington holding that last playoff spot. Behind them, the Arizona Cardinals lost today. They fell to 500. And and so did the Atlanta Falcons at 6-6, which they're currently in the South, leading the South, but Tampa Bay Buccaneers have a chance to be at 600 as well. That's a matchup to look at because Tampa Bay does technically hold the head-to-head over Washington. So we don't want to necessarily end in a matchup where we have to go into tiebreakers with Tampa Bay. So maybe the Falcons end up losing to the point where Tampa Bay just takes that division spot there for Washington.
So is that a guarantee then that Washington will come out of the bye week with at least a 1-game lead?
They are a game and a half.
No matter what happens.
I believe how it's actually listed right now. Yeah, they're a game and a half ahead of the 8th seed right now. So they are guaranteed to make it through bye.
Gain a half a game.
Yeah. They are guaranteed to still be in the 7th when they play against the New Orleans Saints on their next one. So that's fantastic. Let's get back to the actual game here.
Yep.
And let's talk a little bit about the defense. The defense started off pretty strong. Second quarter started to kind of allow things to get by them. I loved the comment that you're needling our friend Trev, who couldn't make it today, on Sanistral, who had given up a touchdown.
Yeah.
What did you think about the defense overall performance today? As you kind of mentioned in the third quarter, things kind of going there. Still haven't been able to pitch a shutout in decades.
Sure.
So what's going on with the defense today?
Look, the defense I thought was very good today. This isn't a great Tennessee offense, right? But this is a competent offense, especially running the ball. They're 12th in the NFL in running. Tony Pollard was 7th in the league in rushing, and he got 35 yards today. They held the entire team the entire team was 35 yards. Mm-hmm. Washington's 29th in the league against the run.
That's going to help
Tennessee to 35 yards. Now, I understand Tennessee kind of got away from the run when you get down 21-0 in the first quarter.
28 to
However, 28? Well, not in the first quarter.
Sorry, 21-0 in the first, sure.
Yeah, but still, the point being, you get behind 28-0, then you are going to stop running the ball on a consistent basis. But they weren't running it beforehand either. Yeah. So Washington's defense, I thought, did a great job against the run. And then, look, you're going to give up plays. The best defenses in the world give up plays, and they gave up a few plays here and there. Their receivers weren't helping them, right? Their Their line wasn't helping them by getting a bunch of penalties. Levis was throwing bad passes. It's just not a good football team. But look at Dallas the week before. Dallas had a terrible offense, and they were doing kind of what they wanted, even though they weren't scoring a lot of points. And Washington couldn't stop them. So you still have to do it. And they did it. So I thought defensively they were very, very good. They only gave up 245 total yards, and Washington gives up on average 370. And that's sixth best in the league. So they're probably going to move up in overall defense this year. So excellent job by the defense.
Held the Titans to 5 conversions out of 12 on third down, 0 for 1 on fourth down for the Tennessee Titans there. You mentioned the running game and not being able to run even before then. They ran 11 times for a 3.2 clip, which is a pretty good rushing defense on that one.
Yeah.
Whether or not Fedarian Mathis' absence was a part of why the defense was better, well, we'll talk about that on Wednesday. Right now, I want to talk about with the $5 donation. Great win against the Titans. I believe that the team felt the criticism coming from the fans and the media, which gave them a little motivation today. And Ted, that might be true, but they talked a lot about how Bobby Wagner kind of did a team meeting type deal, brought the team together, and he talked. This is a player who a lot of people believe will be in the Hall of Fame when he decides to hang up his cleats. And so people are going to listen. He talks about how this is a good to great team, and they just need to put things together. And so I think one of the things he would preach would be, don't listen to that outside noise. Don't listen to what the fans are saying. Don't listen to what the media is saying. We have a good team, believe in ourselves. So Ted, it might be true on some of the players, but I think the team as the whole is ignoring us, ignoring media, and just trying to find that intrinsic motivation. And they had it today. They had things going today, and there was a lot of good things kind of working for them. You're seeing good plays, even though that, this is even though this is a team that struggles at times, and you have players who, like Sanderstrom, had given up that one touchdown. He had a fumble recovery. He was the one who forced the fumble as well. So I was like, there's going to be turnarounds and have some of that good play, and they know that they're capable of it. Even Benjamin St. Juice, Trev. Knows that they are capable of playing at a level that will win football games and do some good things. Stoner, JG did not get to see the game. So JG here is wondering, was Daniel's accuracy significantly better today?
Oh, 100%. His accuracy was fantastic. He had a couple of throws, might have been a little high, but sometimes they were on purpose in order to keep them away from defenders. And then he had the one to Noah Brown that was down the sideline that if he had thrown it more accurate, Noah Brown
it would have been a touchdown. Yeah.
But look, that happens. But over the course of 30 pass attempts, 25 completions, I'd say that's pretty accurate. Probably 5 or 6 of those were, behind the line, little bubble screens, this and that. Every team does that. Yes, his accuracy was fantastic today.
Yeah. Mike asking if the season ended today, because we talked a little bit about the playoffs there. Washington would probably have to play in Seattle. They actually be playing in Philadelphia. They'd be playing up at the Link. 7th seed goes up against the 2nd seed. 2nd seed currently the Philadelphia Eagles. It is going to be interesting to see how things go down the line there. Really, Detroit and Philadelphia are going to be the ones trying to get to that 1 seed. I guess Minnesota's in there as well at 10-2. But whoever is the 2nd place finish for the North is only going to be the 5th team going into the playoffs. And so Seattle will be the 3rd seed, is currently the 3rd seed, which is where Green Bay would be headed there. Washington kind of in a position here now. Green Bay, they were 9-3. If Washington catch them, we'll see. We got some games left to play, and we'll be talking more about that. Make sure you catch us live on Wednesday, 7:30 Eastern for YouTube and Facebook. Right now, let's talk about who we have on our no-goes and go-goes. So in our first who is your no-go for the game?
Well, since I get to go first, I get to steal the one that everybody knows it's going to be. And Zane Gonzalez can't be missing 2 field goals, relatively simple field goals. A 46-yarder should be almost automatic in the NFL nowadays. These guys kick it close to a 90% rate. And so a 46-yarder is average. You got to make those. And he pushed them both to the right. We'll see if he does whatever he needs to do to correct that. But Zane Gonzalez has got to be my no-go, because think about when Tennessee got to 19 and Washington was at 35, and they were trying to get to 21 for their 2-point conversion, but they didn't. So it's 35-19. How much better would you feel if he had made those 2 field goals and it was 41-19?
Sure.
Right? It would feel so much better. And then
maybe that's why I was talking about it never really felt close, or that we're threatened as that was one of those factors, because really Washington was in control the whole time. P&W Trout Slayer is agreeing with you. Zane Gonzalez was the one.
I mean, it's got to be. There's nothing else.
The first miss wasn't egregious. It just snuck outside.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't see the second miss.
About the same.
It was about the same kind of. So it's maybe just he needs to listen to Adam Peters and Dan Quinn. It just needs a little recalibration.
That's right.
When it comes there. If you're going to take him as our no-go, and I am going to have to go somewhere else, I'm going to go with Fedarian Mathis being the no-go this time.
Man.
If you cannot, as a defensive tackle of a team that needs run stoppers against a team that is known to run the ball, Tony Pollard, like you mentioned earlier, in the top 10 in the NFL and rushing yards this season, and you're a defensive tackle, a second-round pick from just 3 years ago now?
Right.
And you're getting to be a healthy scratch?
Yeah.
That is just crazy.
Look, go back into our history and look at our content, and you'll see both you and I, when they made that pick, our jaws dropped. You know who else? Do you remember? You know who else's jaw dropped when Fedarian Mathis was picked in the second round? Fedarian Mathis's jaw dropped. You remember, right? He could not believe that Washington selected him in the second round.
Yeah.
So that's all you need to know about Fedarian Mathis's talent level in comparison to his draft status.
Yeah,
let's just not that. Sheldon Day. We never even heard of Sheldon Day until about a month ago.
He's a journeyman.
Yeah. And he's out there getting major minutes while Fedarian Mathis can't even sniff the field. That right there will tell you a whole lot about Fedarian Mathis too.
Yeah, let's go on to our go-go's here. Gus Bus go-go. Defense for holding Titans to 35 yards rushing.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. JG with go-go is Sanistril. Go-go Mikey for Brian T. Beal as well. A lot of people love the young rookie. He did give up a touchdown. He did have a couple of plays where, the guy got by him, but I really think Mike Sanistril might end up being one of once Lattimore's healthy and Lattimore's playing like Marshawn Lattimore, Sanistril on the other side, that's going to be juicy. That's going to be juicy.
Yeah.
So,
and then next year's number 1 pick, the corner, is going to be in the slot, right? Yeah. Or however they end up doing it.
However we need to do it. It's going to be fantastic. I think that, I honestly, the more and more Sanistril plays and getting Lattimore, I'm not even thinking first round cornerback like we were earlier.
That's true.
This one. Gus, make sure you ask us about Quan Martin on Wednesday's show, because that will be for theirs. Gus saying that Quan Martin hasn't been impressing. So
we're probably going to go over the last 4 or 5 years of draft picks, or 6 years even. And, because it's an off week, it's a bye week.
Yeah. And Fedarian Mathis being a healthy scratch gives us a lot to talk about there. So Stoner, those were the go-go's for our listeners. Who is your go-go?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Dan Quinn on this one. Dan Quinn gets my go-go for this one, because this team could have looked past this game going into the bye week. Sometimes that happens, right? But Dan Quinn had this team ready, prepared physically, emotionally, all of that. And don't get it wrong. We watch it and we see the ebbs and flows of a game. Don't get it wrong. Washington absolutely crushed Tennessee today in all phases of the game. For if you just look at just some of the basic stats, 29-12 in first downs, 463 to 245 in yards, third down conversions, 9 of 14 to 5 of 12 for the other guys. Time of possession, 40 to 20. You doubled their time of possession, and you put 42 on the number 2 ranked defense in the NFL. It was a butt whooping all the way around. You won the turnover battle. You beat them throwing. You rushed the ball 45 times. You did it on defense. You did it on special teams with the turnover. It was a complete annihilation of Tennessee, and I think that goes to the head coach, Dan Quinn. So that's my go-go.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about this when we're doing the fraud discussion on Wednesday, but it was like this team is trying to find its identity. And what is its identity? Is it the team that is, losing these games, that, is that their identity? Or is it the team that is fighting and clawing their way back in to try to, be a part of these games? And when you have games like this where you clearly outmatch your opponent, and that's not a talent-based thing, that is simply a X's and O's thing. That is an on-the-field thing. You outmatch them at every step of the way. The entire coaching staff deserves a little pat on their back there. Cliff Kingsbury was one of the go-go's here for P&W. Brian also throwing one to Jaden Daniels there. And then the one that I'm going to go to is with Angela, and that's Brian Robinson.
Sure.
Having only his 4th 100-yard game of his career today. He came in, he didn't really play that second half. They didn't really want him to, resting him up, and I understand that. My fantasy team was a little sad to see that, but he had 16 carries for 103 yards and a touchdown on a beautiful 40-yard run there to open up the scoring for the Washington Commanders. B-Rob is my go-go there. Luvu is Captain Obvious's go-go. Sure. And now that we've talked about some of our go-go, Stoner, why don't we talk about who our Don't Sleep player of the game is? Don't Sleep Energy is a local DMV company, and it gets you going in all the right ways, whether or not it's that energy shot that Stoner was holding up or one of their energy drinks. They have sugar-free and regular for you, or you can get some of their fantastic gear as well. So support a local DMV business. When you go out to don'tsleepenergy.com, use the code DISTRICT and save yourself 10% off your entire order. Don't Sleep Energy. It makes you great. Who was great and who was your player of the game?
Yeah, my Don't Sleep Energy player of the game. I really wanted to go with Jaden Daniels because he did come back and he had a fantastic game. Again, 25 of 30 for 206, 3 touchdowns plus another one on the ground, where he had 34. He was fantastic. He was everything. But I'm not going to select him. I'm going to select a guy that really should be selected every game. That's Terry McLaurin. Terry McLaurin has still kind of getting some criticism for getting shoestring tackled on these long throws. All the guy does is go out there and produce year after year after year. And in this game, he had a fantastic game. He had 8 targets, 8 catches, 73 yards, 2 touchdowns. He set a career high in touchdowns in the season already. He's going to set a career high in yards by the end of the year. And all he does is just make those tough catches when he takes some pops a couple of times and he just pops up. The crowd loves him. Everything about him is great for this organization. He's getting close to where he's going to need another contract. And I believe he's the type of guy who will take a team-friendly deal so that he can stay here for his entire career. Terry McLaurin was awesome today. 8 catches for 73, 2 touchdowns. He's my Don't Sleep Energy player of the game.
All 8 targets were hauled in on those plays there for him, and that is one of the things I'm looking forward to. FTN as the holder of a analytic stat I love, DVOA, and they have a quick reads article that they put out on Monday, and I'm looking forward to seeing where Terry McLaurin fits in that as far as one of the top wide receivers because of this Tennessee defense being fairly good. And I haven't looked at where they stand analytically. Obviously, box score stats, Tennessee fares pretty good, but 8 for 8. That's usually a pretty good sign that you're a good wide receiver on that one. There are a couple people here. Don't sleep on Terry, said JG. Brian, don't sleep or can't sleep on Luvu anymore. He's the guy. TJ with his don't sleep player of the game being Brian Robinson there, and Jesse giving player of the game to the offensive line, adding that they did the most to establish the tone in this game. And they really did. And they were scrappy early. And I think that was partly by design, seeing them kind of get into it with that defensive line and trying to set the tone. And all of those are some fantastic picks. But I'm going to give my don't sleep player of the game to one Chris Rodriguez.
I like it.
Who's coming into this game again after being cut, released from this team. Austin Eckler put on IR, likely out for the season until we get to the playoffs. And Chris Rodriguez, who had been called up a few times this year and was not used. Today, they asked him to carry the rock 13 times, and he did so for 94 yards. That's 7.2 yards a carry. Beautiful. And added a touchdown to boot on that one. Chris Rodriguez is going to be my don't sleep player of the game, especially because I talked about how important it is that to be a running team, you have to run the ball when they expect you to run. And in the second half, with a big lead, Tennessee expected Washington to run, and Chris Rodriguez stepped in and said, I'm ready, and I can do that. That is going to be my don't sleep player of the game.
And that touchdown was his first ever touchdown, too.
First in the NFL. EP was saying, I hope someone grabbed the ball for him because he did toss it on the ground. So hopefully he did get that one back. Brian patting me on the back one for that one. Appreciate it there. And Angela, we appreciate you donating $5 in the super chat, supporting the channel and our team. So proud of the homies today. Let's go. And speaking of fans, I loved the home field advantage today, even though they panned late and there was not as many fans out there early on. You can hear it, and you can hear the Terry chants late. And I really loved those little flags that they had given people, the rainbow flags. Maybe that could be our thing instead of the towels. Who knows? Washington I would love for them to find something for Northwest Stadium that is like the go-to for them to do and bring up that fan atmosphere. Let's get back into having home field advantage here in the DC area. No team to beat this week. It's on the bye, but we aren't taking a break. We'll be live on Wednesday. You can catch us live 7:30 Eastern on YouTube and Facebook. Join the conversation and make sure you're sharing us with your friends so that way they can join the conversation as well. I hope you've already liked this video and subscribed to the channel because we appreciate everybody jumping in here today. The Washington Commanders are victorious heading into the bye, 42-19 over to the Tennessee Titans. I'm Nathan, joining us late today, and that's Stoner holding down the fort as he always does. And until next time, we are brought to you by Don't Sleep Energy and Bet Online. Until next time,
we back, baby.
Let's go. Be a fan.